Hi guys, welcome back to the Casual Watch Review channel. I've not spoken on this subject before, but we have talked a few times on the podcast about the Omage Moon Swatch collaboration. I wanted to gather my thoughts over the last couple of months about what's been going on with this release. And honestly, I think this was the best, worst watch release I have ever seen. I know that doesn't make a lot of sense, but I'm going to try and explain myself in the course of this video. I needed a few months to cool off a little bit. I was very sour on the way that they released this watch. If you've listened to those podcasts available on iTunes, you will have heard the more uncut version of this. When the release was announced, it did shock the world. A new style swatch shaped like a Speedmaster, and Omage's logo far bolder than Swatch's on the dial. So who was it? Did Omage release it or did Swatch release it? In many ways, this was a genius of a release. I love Omage. I owned a Speedmaster for many years. When I got married, my gift to my wife on our wedding day was the Ladies Quartz Omage Seamaster. Omage has produced amazing movements like the coaxial movement. Modern Omage is outstanding. Grand Seiko, I would say, is better with movement technology, but Omage is well up there when you look at the affordable luxury segment. Granted, 5 to 6k may not seem affordable, but you can pay a lot more for a lot less, and the Omage Speedmaster is an outstanding watch for the money. Omage has even produced quartz watches in its own lineup, so for this watch I'm all in on quartz, even though it's expensive for a quartz watch, especially one that can't be serviced, the crystal can't be replaced, and if you damage it, largely it's disposable. I've even been lucky to see one in person, and I like it. I like them a lot. I even got to see one in person that is the version that I would most like to own. So I'm going to focus this opinion piece on how the watch was launched. You could easily argue that this was one of the most successful watch launches in recent memory as a counter to this, because honestly, when was the last time you heard anybody talk about a new Swatch release, especially people that aren't into Swatch watches generally? This ended up being a very hyped release, driven by social media and fueled by flippers, and not just the bottom-feeding watch flippers. It branched out into those sneaker and fashion flippers. This was more akin to a sneaker release or something from Supreme. Yes, some limited edition watches sell out quickly, but the MoonSwatch could be available for many years to come, only limited to how many they can produce. And I heard on the grapevine that's only about 10,000 per day, and considering there's 12 colours. Let's start on a bit of a high and talk about what I think Swatch got right with this release. And to hand it to Swatch, they did get a lot right with this release. But I would argue that a lot of that success took them by surprise rather than being a carefully executed marketing strategy. One big win is the watches are great. Yes, there are a few reports of the colours wearing off, but honestly, so what? Seriously, every time we get a product like this, like a new iPhone, somebody drops it or bends it, or somebody spends hours putting in different combinations of the code to bypass the pin. After the initial shock wears off, it gets a bit boring. Also, I think the whole bioceramic thing is a whole load of nothing, but I digress. I think the big win is, without knowing it, Swatch, in my view, reinvented the fashion watch. A fun new design that looks and works far better than most of the garbage we see coming from brands like Daniel Wellington and of course Movement, who have gotten away with far worse horological design crimes and allegedly awful build quality than any Swatch has ever been guilty of. If they can sustain this momentum, a whole new generation of watch lovers could see the Swatch as the height of fashion, like how the Pop Swatch was a must-have playground accessory when I was growing up. So what went wrong in my view? First of all, they turned Omage into a hype beast. Omage, for the most part, has kept a very dignified position in the watch industry. Yes, they've had more limited edition Speedmasters than most watch companies have had individual models in their entire histories, but these have typically only ever been noticed by collectors. They can almost print money by putting Snoopy on the dial, but the average hype-chasing eBay seller would never really know that. For the most part, Omage has kept an air of sophistication. For example, example, when is the last time that you saw an iced out Omega on the wrist of a rapper like you would with a Rolex or a Patek? You almost never see it. I think the Moon Swatch could be seen as graffiti on Omega's dignified history books. Some people think graffiti is art, and other people think it's desecration. Does it cheapen the brand? I certainly don't think so, but you could certainly argue that. Only time will tell, and so far they seem to have dodged that bullet. But again, I think this was largely fluke rather than skill. I would hate to be the Omega exec at a fancy dinner introducing themselves to a new contact only to be met with, "Oh yeah, Omega. I know the Speedmaster. My kid has the pink one." Now let's get to the serious stuff here for a second, and my real issue with this watch was how it was released. I'm sure the demand did take Swatch by surprise. Well, if they didn't spend any time talking to watch collectors, any Omega watch collector would have told them this would have been a hit. If Rolex suddenly greenlit a plastic Submariner, people would be queuing around the block for it. Even if you hated the idea of it, you would queue. Even if you're a Rolex purist, you would queue just for the novelty of it. And the Speedmaster is that icon to Omega. And for $250, any Omega collector would have paid that money just to see what it was like. For them not to think this was a hit, in my view, is just an epic miscalculation. I am a Swatch fan, and I got a taste of the Swatch marketing launch team's clown car rolling in when it came to the release of the Mirror Spot Mickey. The artist Damien Hirst created a limited edition Swatch watch with Mickey Mouse on the dial, two sought-after names that came together. I managed to snag the Mirror limited edition, but the one to get was the black, yellow and red one. This was in very limited supply and launched online. Well, why is it limited? Well, apparently they're running out of plastic. Of course, I'm joking. But back to the watch. They were supposed to release this Swatch watch at 12 midnight GMT. We waited up, eager to see the launch. Well, 12 rolls around and the website didn't update. No watches, people all over the world were trying to get them, and they must have overwhelmed the system. The reports of batches being released on the hour started flowing. By that time, we completely lost interest, only to wake up the next day to see tons of them on eBay for massively inflated prices. The flippers win again, but only because Swatch designed that system and made it limited that caused that. So did they learn their lesson from that Damien Hirst Swatch watch? Well, they may have learned a lesson, but I think it was probably the wrong one. As we know, the Moon Swatch was to be released in Swatch stores. Not all Swatch stores, just random ones. I personally would have had to have driven 4 hours to Miami to a store that was supposed to have them. And I would have done that 4-hour drive with no guarantee that they had them, that they would be available. All we knew is that they would be limited to 2 per customer. Little did we know that even that was a joke. This started a whole chain of events. Nobody knew how many were being released, how many were delivering to the stores. It even seemed to take a lot of the stores themselves by surprise. Then reports started rolling in of just epic queues around the world. Stores had to shut or not even open because of overwhelming queues. Police were called. Genuine fans were outnumbered 10-1 by flippers. A friend to the show, John from Tea and Tickers, got accosted on a live stream by a flipper who didn't want to be on camera. And his phone was only saved by a subscriber of his channel who noticed what was happening. I appreciate that the first day that was a surprise, but if you're basically selling a $250 lotto ticket where you're guaranteed to win at least triple that, no wonder it got nasty. So did Swatch reevaluate that debacle of that day, reassess, pivot, look into other safer ways to distribute the watch? Well, we all know the answer to that because we're now 2-3 months after the launch and they're still only distributing them through these specific stores. Still, there are queues at these stores daily. So what could they have done to get this right from the get-go and improve the situation going forward? Honestly, I'm no authority to speak on this. I have never worked for Swatch or I've never worked for a company that releases products like this that are in such demand. But I'm going to offer an opinion. What I think they could have done to start with is pared the collection down drastically so they could make more of the key models. If you didn't know that there was a blue, a light green or a yellow one, would people really ask for it? Would that have reduced the demand for it? I don't think it would have at all. So you could have easily come out with a collection of 6 or 8 at the most. 12, I think, was a massive overextension because some of the models do look similar. After they noticed what happened on that first day, they could have pivoted and had it available online straight away. Sure, it's a huge ego boost to have queues around shopping malls, corners of streets, but at what cost? At what cost to your own staff? I know the argument is that this drives people to the store, but I don't think many people would care if they had to pre-order the watch if it was sold out. It would cool off a lot of the issues if you could buy the watch for delivery later. The flip-flopping about the watches being available online, when they're going to be available online, is feeding the flippers, honestly. Have customers pre-order them, then supply them in batches. Maybe even make different bands for different batches. So batch 1 has the bands that you see now, batch 2 has another one. Make a store exclusive if it matters that much that you're driving people to the stores. That's just my opinion. Let me know your opinion in the comment section down below. If you enjoy this type of content, I would love it if you subscribed, hit the thumbs up and the bell icon. You can join us on the Facebook group. The podcast is available on iTunes. We also have a Discord as well. All the details in the description down below. I'll see you next time on Casual Watch Reviews. Thanks, guys. Bye.